Hi everyone, my name is Chris. I am a 46-year-old man who lives here in Montreal, Canada, and I am doing something a little crazy, but necessity is the mother of invention. So here we go. So I'm starting this stream here on YouTube. I want to share it with some people here, and the goal here is to educate people about the silver bullet legal strategy and how it was used to disappear my daughter, and to also sort of maybe try to do my part to add something to this world, to make something that lasts far beyond I'm gone, far beyond me, and so again, necessity is the mother of invention, and so I made this because I need to. And so here's the plan. I'm here in my living room. It is Sunday night Eastern. It's 8:17 p.m. I don't know how long I'm going to be online for. I don't know how long I'm streaming for here, but the point is, what I want to do is I want to educate you all as well as be open to questions and inquiries, because I think, um, given the scope of what I want to discuss here and the scope of what I'm attempting to do, it's going to take me some time, and people are gonna have questions, and I welcome those. I welcome questions. I welcome detractors. I think it's it's only fair when you're trying to do something bold to be challenged, right? And so I have a strong BS detector, and so because I respect the skeptics among us, I want to make something that speaks to the skeptics, kind of like almost first, right? So that I pass a sniff test, because there are a lot of charlatans. There are a lot of people out there who claim to be doing something, significant or worth your energy, your time, and when they're not. And so I think I've done something here that is worth the energy and time, and I want to make sure that it's well understood. And I recognize that I'm taking a risk. I am currently part of an ongoing legal battle, a very painful, very sad legal battle that has left my daughter as the primary victim. And it has been escalating consistently, progressively, nonstop for for quite some time. And so I think that in highlighting my experience and highlighting frankly, the insanity of what I've gone through just to maintain a relationship with my daughter, I hope to bring light and bring awareness to the silver legal strategy, as well as, ideally hold my baby as soon as possible. And so that's going to require me doing two things. One, explaining to you my story and my situation, and two, explaining to you the solution that I am proposing to address it. And it's a crazy idea, guys. And so it's going to require patience. I've never done this before. I've never live streamed. I've never gone on YouTube and put myself out there in this way. I don't have experience with this at all. So this is coming from a place of desperation and righteous indignation, if I'm being honest. It's insane to me that I have to go to these lengths in order to be reconnected with my daughter, but so be it. So here we are. So I'm streaming live on YouTube now. Again, I don't know how long I'm going to do this for. And again, this is a stream in order to draw attention to the fact that my daughter was disappeared using something called the silver bullet legal strategy. And I would like to, just kind of keep this going until I think it's necessary. As long as I think it's necessary to get the message across. And when it feels like it's time for me to close the stream, I will. So until then, I will present my story. But before I do, I want to make sure there's at least one person in the stream. So let me go ahead here and invite some of you all. I'm going to take the link to this stream, and I'm gonna do the boomer thing, man. Post it on Facebook. And those of you who are friends of mine on Facebook and are like, "What's going on?" Just come to this this live stream on YouTube, you can pose your question to me here, or you can just text me because you know my phone number, or you can message me on Facebook. And what I will do is, as I'm going here, I will either address what I see you writing to me, as best as I can. The hope here is to actually have an open dialogue, because I recognize what I'm doing here it's crazy. I'm being frank, it's a little crazy, and so it's going to require back and forth. I don't think I can do this by just sitting here and preaching and pontificating. And so, I basically want to make sure that I've got you guys with me. And so, whoever's online, whoever is here in the chat, just go ahead and say hello. And when I see that I've got a few people here online, I will begin. We'll begin. So let's just take a moment for that. And just for anybody who's joining now, or anybody who has no idea what this is about, my name is Chris. I'm a 46-year-old father living here in Montreal, Quebec, and my daughter was disappeared. My daughter is less than 3 years old, and my toddler daughter was disappeared with the aid and the use of something called the Silver Bullet Legal Strategy. And it was something I'd never heard about. I had no awareness of. But once I was hit with it, sadly, I was forced to educate myself about my situation and how to remedy it. And that brought me down a rabbit hole that I think is too important to keep to myself. And so here I am trying to share my story with others. And so that's why I'm going as far and as big as I can, which is basically going on YouTube and streaming here, and streaming for as long as I need to in order to convey this story. And so my goal again is to educate and get my baby back. And extreme times call for extreme measures, and so these are certainly extreme times. So that's the deal here. Let me go ahead here and send some invites to people on my Insta. And if you connect to this chat and you want to say anything here on YouTube, just jump in the live chat and just blast me, say whatever, man. Just posting this link to Instagram to alert people of the insane thing I am doing right now. If you guys have ever used like the desktop versions of these apps, I'm using the Windows version right now of the Instagram app. Yeah, okay. All right. So again, for those of you tuning in right now, I see that I'm alone, but that's okay. This is important enough that even if nobody shows up and this is just an exercise in getting this message out, so be it. Anything that is a drop in the bucket towards reconnecting me with my daughter is worth it. Oh boy. So, of course, I didn't necessarily try to log in before doing this stream. So we'll forget our passwords. I've got a good system, but regardless, I'm going to go ahead and climb that mountain while I'm live here. If you know anybody who has been hit with the Silver Bullet Legal Strategy, please give them this link and let them know that if they have any questions or if they have any thing they want to share, to please do so. I have something that I've been working on for some time now in order to help level the playing field, and I think it'll do the job. And so I would like to battle test it. I'd like to do more show than telling, and so that's what this live stream is. In part, also, it is an effort to reconnect with my baby Nova, who was disappeared on February 27th, 2025. I've had no contact with my daughter And she was disappeared with the help of a legal strategy called the Silver Bullet Legal Strategy. So my toddler daughter was disappeared with the help of this strategy. And so I'm doing this in order to educate people about this tactic, this crime, and take the trauma and the insanity I've been through and hopefully use it as a vehicle to help others to avoid, ideally, and that's a prevention, right? To avoid this situation themselves, but ideally as well, to get to reinstall hope, right? I guess one way to think of it is I created an app in an attempt to reinstall hope. So it's worked for me, and I'm hoping it'll work for other people. So if you are connected to this live stream, go ahead and say hey or hi. Let me know you're there. I don't mind. I don't mind talking into the void because I'm gonna at some point just start whether or not anyone's here because this is important enough to not be dependent on audience stuff. It needs to be shared. But if you know anybody who is a victim of the Silver Bullet Legal Strategy, if you want to know what that is, if you want to have a sense of why I'm doing this, if you know me and you're like a little worried, and you're like, what is this? Now's your chance to pose questions. Now's your chance to get answers. I'm available tonight. I've cleared the schedule for tonight because I want to take time to let people know a bit about my story and how this can possibly, hopefully, be averted for other people in the future. So, yeah, that's it. Okay, time to send out some invites. Let me send out an invite here on Instagram. As I said, I will use the Instagram Windows app. Okay, here we go. I mean, how do you just like post? How do you just post? Oh, create. That makes sense. Okay, select from computer, create a post. So again, my name is Chris. I am a 46-year-old father here in Montreal, Canada, and my daughter was disappeared with the help of uh, a criminal legal tactic that is known as the Silver Bullet Legal Strategy. And that strategy was used to disappear my daughter on February 27th of this year, 2025. And so I'm a loving dad who at this point realizes that he needs to go to extraordinary measures to overcome the hurdles that keep him from, doing his job, which is protecting his daughter and making sure his baby is safe. So my job is to raise my daughter, and so regardless of the obstacle, I'll do that. And so this is an effort to make sure that I do that. So your support is appreciated, and all of the good words that people have shared with me is really, really, really appreciated. So I have shared on Facebook. I have shared. I'm just going to go to the Instagram website in the web browser. I suspect it's better than the experience on the desktop app. Oh, look, it's the exact same experience. It's almost as if the desktop app is the website. Okay, here we go. Use my phone. So if you're just tuning in again, my name is Chris. Hello. And I'm doing this live stream in order to educate people about the Silver Bullet Legal Strategy. This was used to disappear my daughter back on February 27th of this year, 2025. And so I have been working diligently to come up with a way to reconnect with my daughter, save her, make sure that, that I do my duty, which is take care of my daughter. And so sadly, I've had to go to some pretty extreme lengths in order to uh, right the wrongs that have been committed against her and myself. And the necessity is the mother of invention, and so I had to make a thing, and so I've made a thing. So I think it looks like the reason I don't have anybody on the stream is because I did not share the proper link. So let me go here to my, perhaps not a terrible idea to do some preparation before going live for the first time. Okay, I see I have one person here. Hello, that's good. And what I will do is I will take another shot at sharing my link to this stream. So for anybody coming in, just a heads up, my name is Chris. I am a 46-year-old father of a toddler. Her name is Nova, and she was disappeared 3 months ago, a little over 3 months ago, on January 27th, with the aid of something called the Silver Bullet Legal Strategy. So I have decided to go live to educate people about this crime, and also to share a solution that I have tried to come up with to address this insane injustice that is perpetuated in our society. So yeah, that's what this is about. I'm going to stream as long as I need to, and I've got something pretty cool and pretty important that I've built, and I would like to share it with the world. And so that's what this is all about. Simple stuff. So right now, the biggest challenge I have is figuring out how to share the link to my stream in an effective way. And I realize I'm going to start. Okay. Yeah, these YouTube streaming tools are pretty cool. Oh, they give you a little thingy here where it creates a link to share with people. It's kind of right there, and couldn't be the more obvious if I tried. So let me go ahead now. Now that I've got the goods, let me go ahead and share. As you can tell, I wouldn't say this was an impulsive choice on my part. This is not impulsive, but I certainly, when you got to do something big and scary, you kind of just pull the trigger, right? You just kind of do it. So yeah, there wasn't a ton of premeditation here, because I'm speaking the truth. So I think when you're being honest and you're speaking the truth, it doesn't require months and months and months of scripting and prep. So okay, I finally shared the link that lets you connect to this stream. It took me let's see, how long did it take me to figure that out? It took me only 18 minutes to figure out how to share this stream. But whoever that one person is in this stream, I appreciate you. I see you, one person, and yeah, thank you. So let me go now and try third time's a charm to share this stream on my Instagram. I'm trying to use the Instagram app on Windows, which is just not. It's the Instagram website on Windows, and it's not as smooth as I wish it was. So bear with me here. And go ahead and if you guys have questions, I'm going to be doing this stream as long as I think it takes to let people know about the Silver Bullet Legal Strategy and how it was used to disappear my daughter Nova back on February 27th of this year. Some of you know me, most of you do not, but what I did is I made a thing to try to help me reconnect with my daughter, and also to maybe install some hope, period, in all of us. Because one thing that became clear to me when I was when I initially started trying to come up with ways to get myself out of the situation I found myself in, is how I was really on my own. There really isn't a playbook for this. There really isn't, as far as I could tell, best practices. And if there were, they weren't surfaced to me in a way that was effective. And so I seek to be effective. So to that end, I made a thing, and I want to share it with you all. First, I want to make sure that I'm not fully screaming to the void. So let me go ahead and share. And I have a chat is open here on YouTube. If you have any questions or have anything you want to say, please do. Please share this, the link to this, with as many people as you can. My daughter Nova was disappeared. Okay, just checking my link there on YouTube. It works good. My daughter was disappeared. Her name was Nova. She's less than 3 years old. She's a toddler. She was disappeared on February 27th of this year, 2025, using something called the Silver Bullet Legal Strategy, which is a criminal legal strategy that is perpetrated by lawyers and their clients against parents for whom they wish to have a swift and decisive legal advantage over, usually early in the proceedings or the sort of back and forth. And my daughter, will be 3 in October. And I've not seen her for the last 3 months. I've had no contact with my daughter. I've not held her, touched her, seen her, nothing for the last 3 months. And this legal disappearing of my daughter has been allowed to happen because of something called the Silver Bullet Legal Strategy. And so I've seen some of the darkest depths while going through this battle, and I've learned some lessons. And because of a series of unique privileges that I have in my life, mostly the love and support of a lot of incredible people, I was afforded the opportunity to perhaps maybe come up with a way to combat this. And so I made something called the Nova Protocol. And what it is a sort of series of instructions that sit on top of a standard popular language model like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. And what it does is, or what I should say is what it did is it kind of helped me do a lot of the heavy lifting and a lot of the heavy emotional work during this time. And so I find myself depending on this tool that I created a lot. And so because I cannot be the only person in this situation, I figured, hey, I'll take this horrific, terrible occurrence and use it to create something positive in the world. And so I made something. It's unique, it's weird, and it's hard to explain. But I think my goal is, again, to install hope. And so I want to install hope. So here we go. So I've never streamed before in my life. This is my first time. I've never done this. And so the point here is I'm going to stream as long as it takes until I feel like I've made the point, right? Until I've communicated as much as I feel is necessary to communicate in this round. So the chat is open there on YouTube. I am posting this here on Facebook, on Instagram, on my personal stuff. So just like the idea here being that, like, if you are somebody who knows me personally, the past few days you've been seeing some like weird posts from me on social media. And so basically what I've been sort of building up the courage to do is this. Okay, so this is what it's been about. And so I want anybody who knows me, whether you're, I don't know, concerned or you just want to, you have questions, you want to understand, please feel free to message me. You know my number, you know how to contact me. Ask me questions. I prefer showing and not telling. I prefer the proof to be in the pudding. And so what I want to do is I made a thing to help me deal with the insanity of a system that allowed this crime to be perpetrated. And so I made a thing that's new and it's kind of wacky, but I think it's going to help a lot of people. And so this is my effort to correct some of the wrongs that have been perpetrated against me with such comfort and such facility that I can't be the only victim. So I think it's time to do something about that. So I want you to share the thing I made to help me right this wrong. And I started the stream at 8:15 p.m. Eastern. Got 5 of you here watching the stream. Thank you for joining. I will not stall for much longer. I'll start to show the goods here. So I'll give it maybe another minute or two, and then I will just start my story. And you just can just go ahead and just share this with whoever you think needs to see this, and whoever jumps into the chat. Yeah, I'll do my best to address you. Just know, please be gentle with me in the sense that this is my first time doing anything like this. I've never gone on social media. I've never streamed before in this way. Like I'm on social media, meaning I have a Facebook account and that sort of stuff. But I've never live streamed. I've never done this, and I'm doing this out of desperation and because it's necessary to inform people about this crime. And the crime is called the silver bullet legal strategy, and it's perpetrated against parents, usually in separation cases, but sometimes in custody cases like my own, where I wasn't with the mother of my daughter, but nonetheless, differences required us to go to court. And what one party will do sometimes is decide they want to get the decisive advantage, and they will employ this strategy, and it basically seeks to destroy the other person as well as create a constant air of aspersions or negativity about the person, so that they're kind of gummed up. It's kind of like throwing chaff, right, to gum up the radars. So it's hard to be able to distinguish the signal from the noise. And so it once you're hit with something like that, if you don't see it coming, it is debilitating. It's incredibly difficult. And so I created a tool to help me navigate it. And, I have found it so useful that I'm like, this is a common enough problem that I want to help others. And so here I am. The ultimate goal is, of course, to get my baby back in my arms. But in the meantime, I want to help as many other people as possible. So I will begin now. I'm just going to start telling my story. And like I said, I'm going to talk as long as it takes. You guys share this with whoever you think it needs to be shared with. So here I go. Okay, yes, my name's Chris. I am a 46-year-old man here in Montreal, Canada. I was born and raised here. So basically, why am I doing this? What's the point of this? How did this all start? Effectively, I have a daughter who I had with somebody who I didn't know for very, very long. This is somebody I'd met during the pandemic. And in that unique space, I found myself making a decision that perhaps I would maybe not have made had the space not been what it was at the time. But nonetheless, I decided to make an incredible human being with somebody. And that incredible human being's name is Nova. Nova is my daughter. Nova was born in October of 2022. And she is one of the most incredible human beings I've ever had the pleasure of knowing, even though she hasn't been around very long. And so my daughter is worth all the efforts and all of the insanity that I'm about to embark in. So this is going to take some time. I'm trying to do something big here. I'm trying to do something that I don't think has ever been done before. And so it's going to take some time, not only for me to orient myself in this, but also to make sure that I'm bringing you guys along with me. So again, I've never done anything like this. I've never gone online and streamed before, but here we go. Necessity is the mother of invention. So let's get to it. So I made a child with somebody back in October of 2022. And this is somebody who I met online. I met them on a dating app. It was the pandemic. It was at the time. It was 2021. We were all kind of trying to make sense out of the world, and I was, like a lot of us, working from home. I worked for a great company, and at the time I was working in the IT department, and so, as you might imagine, working in the IT department when the pandemic hits, that was something. And so, it was a very stressful time for me and for a lot of us. I found myself suddenly working these incredibly long stretches of time every day, sometimes 14-hour days from home, in front of my computer, isolated, worried about everybody in my life who was older than me, especially, but also worried about just how everybody's mental health was, right? Uh, there was something about the pandemic that was so unique, and I think for someone like me, it was particularly informative because I would say that I'm probably an extrovert, and the pandemic, it feels like it flipped me. I feel like I stopped being an extrovert. I feel like I discovered the introverted part of myself. I discovered the part of myself that loved staying home, and the part of myself whose battery wasn't necessarily only recharged with other people, right? And so I leaned into that, and so I decided, hey, look, if I'm going to be, if we're going to be in this for who knows how long, and it felt kind of semi-apocalyptic, I might as well do the best of it. So I decided I want my apartment, where I've lived here now for 18 years. I'm gonna make some changes to the apartment. I want this apartment to be a sort of a solace, and not just that. I want it to be the best place I could be. So I guess the nesting, or whatever you want to call it, instinct kicked in, and I started investing and making sure that my space was as comfortable as it could be. And I had the free time, right? And I was blessed enough and privileged enough to have the resources to invest that energy in myself. And so I did. And so, you know, uh, that kind of time, that kind of time alone, that kind of time, sort of focusing on myself, that kind of time focusing on, the fact that perhaps this is not an effort I had done before, made me realize a lot of things. It made me realize that life is indeed fleeting, right? That it, you could be comfortable and feeling safe and feeling great, and then the next thing you know, poof, it's all done, right? And I think the pandemic for a lot of us was like the best teacher of that, right? We learned that all those sayings and all those mantras about live every moment like it's your last, but no, like legit, it could be your last, because there could be a pandemic that sprouts out of nowhere and kills you. So it was a weirdly sobering moment. And so I found myself, like a lot of us, sort of having a lot of deep meditations on what I really wanted, and legacy, and what was I looking for. And then yeah, I landed up on the fact that, look, at that time I was, I think, believe 44 years old, and I really wanted to be a father, but I felt like, because I had focused on things rather than being a father at that time, that maybe my window of time was passing, right? And so the pandemic was kind of one of those moments where I realized, you know what, Chris, like, when you distill it down, like, what is really important to you, right? And I realized, yeah, you know what, it is really important to be a father. I want to be a father, and so that was kind of a decision that was born out of the unique circumstances of the pandemic that forced me to confront the fact that I'm not going to be here forever, and nobody is promised tomorrow. And so it made me kind of perhaps engage in some more open-minded thinking when it came to who I would be considering having a child with. So uh, I'll just pause to just say, for anybody new who's joining, my name is Chris. I am the father of a toddler whose name is Nova. Nova was disappeared on February 27th of this year, sadly by her mother. And the reason this was allowed to be perpetrated is because of something called the silver bullet legal strategy, and it's an unbelievably destructive and problematic legal strategy that sadly has been perpetrated against a lot of people. And the sad reality is since I've been talking about it this week, what has floored me are the number of people who've reached out to me with absolutely heartbreaking stories about how people who they loved and trusted decided to do their utmost to destroy them. And I guess I just never really thought that there were so many people out there who kind of had this shared playbook. I didn't know about this. I didn't know that this was a thing you could do, the silver bullet legal strategy. And so sadly, I am learning about it firsthand, but I've decided to take this experience, and rather than use it to justify licking my wounds any further, I will use it to correct this harm for others. And God willing, in order to hold my daughter in my arms again. So that's why I'm doing this. So the plan here is to stream as long as I need to. I don't know how long this will be. I hope it won't be too long, but the idea is I'm going to stream as long as it takes for me to feel that I've gotten the message across. And so I welcome the dialogue. I welcome questions. I welcome challenges. I welcome people who have stories. What I'm inviting anyone who knows me personally, who knows my phone number, who knows me on Facebook, who knows me on whatever. If you know somebody who's been through this, or if you are someone who's been through this, who's one of my friends, or someone who knows me, because I'm realizing men, women alike. I'll be honest. When this started happening, I think my own like personal bias, my own personal context made me think that like this felt like something that like if she could do this to me, there are probably many men out there who've had women do this to them. And I'll be honest, before I started talking about it publicly, I did think that this was kind of like a thing that women did to men. Oh no. People do this to people. Men do this to women, women do this to men. And so I think that was for me the first surprise, is that it was gender agnostic in terms of its harm and its focus. And the other sad reality is that there are a few common denominators I started to notice. I started to pick up on some patterns about the types of people who were targeted with this particularly evil, I'll say, form of child abuse that's perpetrated against a child through the parent of choice. And so one thing I noticed is that a lot of people who are victims of this, I would describe them as really, really empathetic people, which I think is kind of was my first kind of pause. Is I was like, the people who are reaching out to me, I guess for lack of a better term, aren't the kind of people I thought would be reaching out to me. I thought I would be getting a lot of sort of disheveled, fathers who were, in their late 40s like me, or maybe a bit older, and who'd been in this fight for a long time and would have, really terrible stories to share with me. But no. Most of the people I've heard from are people who are my age or younger, and who've been going through this way longer than I would have ever have guessed at first blush, and who have been like through the ringer. And when you hear somebody that you like, love, care about, whatever the case may be, recount stories of like horrors committed against them, like that in and of itself is a tough thing to weather, right? Because right away you start searching your own we have no choice but to make it about ourselves sometimes. And so right away you start going like, oh, why wasn't I there? Oh, why did I notice those signs? Oh, how could I let them go through that by themselves? And so I've noticed that since I've been going through this, and I've been reaching out to people and trying to educate people about my experience and this terrible strategy, that I do get a lot of people who I can see this sort of like guilty falling on their own swords for not having been aware of it or not having picked up on it. And the truth is, there's a reason people didn't, because I was cocooning and making sure that I didn't share this with people. And not only was that what I felt I needed to do, but it actually, I realized later, is actually one of the intended consequences. It's a feature, not a bug, of the silver bullet legal strategy. And so my hope here on this stream is to take however much time I need to take to educate and hopefully prevent this from happening to other people, and ideally to reconnect with my baby. So please share this stream with as many people as you can. I made a thing. It's called the Nova Protocol, and I created it in order to prevent this from happening to anyone else, quite frankly. And also in the hopes of helping me find my baby. So what I'm going to commit to doing here is doing my best to tell my story. My story is insane. And even those who know me don't know what all the details of what I've gone through. Now, it goes without saying that anyone who even is is listening to this much is probably surmised that I'm taking a really big legal risk here, right? Because one of the worst things you could ever do is, number one, represent yourself in court, and number two, because that's the domain of narcissists or people who underestimate the process, and or go out and talk about an active case, because as as a parent, especially a single parent going through a custody battle, that like your friends have told you, or anybody that you know who's been through this has told you, that like you can't say anything because everything gets used against you, and you find yourself like paralyzed. You find yourself unable to speak your truth. You find yourself unable to tell others what you're going through. Why? Because you understand that just by sharing your truth, you risk putting more harm towards your child, because you could risk harming yourself legally, ergo not being able to parent your child, being taken out of the equation. And so you find yourself in this terrible sort of jujitsu hold, where even though you're only doing what you think as a parent you need to do to look after your baby, you're somehow find yourself in a position where you can't, and so it starts to set in as a kind of cognitive dissonance. And that's definitely what I started to experience. Is I started to sort of question the fundamentals of reality in some ways, and not totally in like the going cuckoo way, but in the like in the cognitive dissonance way, which is how is it that my daughter could be kidnapped, disappeared, taken, and there kind of isn't an Amber Alert going on right now. There isn't a fire alarm ringing in the streets. How is that? So if it seems like something doesn't add up right now, that's good, because it shouldn't seem like anything's adding up right now. It doesn't. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this time, as much time as it takes, to share this story. And I encourage you, if you know anybody who's a victim of the silver bullet legal strategy, to please encourage them to share this link with them, encourage them to come online, encourage them to join the stream and share their story, and or just come and be present. I don't need anybody in the chat to say anything per se. Just know that you're welcome to, and that I'm here, and I'm not just here to blab aimlessly for a long time. I'm here to launch something and to share something with you all. It's something called the Nova Protocol, and I created it in order to prevent other parents or other people from going through the kind of thing that I'm going through. So we're nearing 9 p.m. Eastern. It is 8:58 p.m. Eastern, and at 9 p.m. I'm just gonna launch right into it. So please, if you guys know me, if you're friends of mine, please share this link with other people who you think would benefit from just having somebody discuss some of the harms that they've encountered. Or if you yourself are somebody who I know, or who is seeing this link on Facebook, and who I've sent a link to directly, which I'm kind of doing right now to people, yeah, man, just jump on this stream, talk to me, tell me what you what you want to share your truth. And what I want to do is I want to share this thing I created. I call it the Nova Protocol, and I wanted to share this thing I created, and I want to battle test it, because honestly, the proof's in the pudding. And if there's one thing I've learned having to navigate the legal system, especially myself and represent myself, it's that the proof's in the pudding. Bring the receipts. There's a concept that I really enjoy that I learned about called the speaking indictment. And the idea of the speaking indictment is that ideally, if you were to go, the perfect scenario is if you go to court, you would not have to kind of like say much, that the fact record of what you're presenting in terms of the evidence would kind of do the talking for you, right? And so really early in this horror story, I sort of pose you up to the idea, which is that there are going to always be disadvantages even when you are clearly, not in the wrong, even when you clearly are coming from a good place, you're always going to have disadvantages when you're trying to convince people of a thing and when those people don't know you. And so that inherent disadvantage caused me to sort of adopt that sort of idea, almost like a religious doctrine. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to make sure that there's always documentary evidence of everything. I'll make sure that I record the audio of everything. I'll make sure that I take as much video as I can. And so what I've done is I've captured a comical amount of high quality evidence and 4K HDR 60 frame per second video, pretty decent bit rate, as well as high quality audio. And so the beauty of this era and the beauty of the particular privilege and luck I have in this world is that I'm able to take the crimes that have been perpetrated against my daughter and I and share them with you all in uncontestable quality and detail. So you don't need to take my word for it. You can just believe your lying eyes, so to speak. So what I'm doing here is I am blasting links at people. If you're in the chat, just say hi. Throw words of support. You guys know me. I've never done anything even remotely like this before. I've never streamed in my life. I've never done this before, but I am doing a live stream in order to bring awareness to the fact that my daughter, Nova, who was a toddler, was disappeared on February 27th. And she was disappeared with the aid of something called the Silver Bullet legal strategy. And so what I'm planning to do here is educate you all about it. And because I would choose to always fight rather than not for my daughter, I decided to create a solution to the systemic injustices that I realized the system was not equipped to help me overcome in a reasonable way. So I created something called the Nova Protocol to help me. It has. And I realized that, this tool will also serve as a vehicle to help others who find themselves fighting for their babies' best interests in spite of efforts to the contrary. And so, to that end, I will launch this on a sort of wider stage, this solution called the Nova Protocol. And again, necessity is the mother of invention. The only reason I did this is not because this is something I've had interest in per se before, but I found myself in a particularly insane situation. And what was truly insane is how common my insane situation was. And so I am not one to accept injustices as norms. And so I'm not a lawyer. I have no training in that area. I'm just a nerd who loves his daughter. And so I've gone to some pretty insane lengths to try to protect my daughter, Nova. And so I created something called the Nova Protocol. And I'm just gonna go do a quick run to the bathroom, and I'm gonna be back. And let's start this. So please, if you have any questions or you have anything you want to say, please jump into the chat. Okay, so I see here Scotty in chat. Yeah, Scott, man, what's up? What's up, brother? You're saying, okay, Scotty says, I might be getting ahead of myself. I got to share, but yeah, so the Nova, you're asking if the Nova protocol is up on Git. I guess that's a bit of a hint, meaning that what I launched, what I want to share with you guys is software related. It's not on Git. I've never used Git. I only made this out of necessity. I effectively vibe coded this. And what I did is over the last 18 months, so this situation's been so rough, I had to go on leave from my job for 18 months just to deal with it. And so, while I kind of sat there stewing for 18 months and fighting every single day to make sure that I was as best a father as I could be for my daughter, I kind of ran parallel thoughts. I was like, how can I prevent other people from going through what I'm going through? And so, yes, the Nova Protocol is a sort of it's a software idea, but it's one that's real, and it works. And so, yeah, let me. I'm just gonna take a moment, guys. I'll be back in a second. I'm run to the bathroom really quick, and I'll come back and I'll just get into it. So, please share this with anybody you know who has been through an injustice in the legal system. And I got something pretty big. I think that is worth sharing with you all. And yeah, I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. Again, this is a pretty impromptu stream. I'm doing this from my living room. My name is Chris. I'm a 46-year-old dad here in Montreal, Canada. And my daughter, Nova, who's a toddler, was disappeared on February 27th. And so I made a thing to hopefully find my daughter and also to help others from experiencing what I've gone through. And yeah, to hopefully install hope. So let me start by just speaking my truth and telling my story. And I think for any of you who've been through anything like this, you'll realize how big of a risk I'm taking. I'll start off by just saying this. One of the best defenses against the defamation charge, when somebody says, hey, you defamed my character, which I think is at the core of a lot of people's fear of not speaking, because you fear, hey, if I speak, even though I know what I'm saying is true, even though everybody around me knows what I'm saying is true, even though what I'm saying is obviously true to any reasonable person, that reality doesn't mean much in the court of law, frankly, because the people who win court cases aren't the people who are right. The people who win court cases are the people who argue their case the best, right? That's what it comes down to, that moment in court. And if you were able to perform in court, or if your lawyer's able to perform, great, you're going to do fine. If they weren't, sorry. It doesn't matter what the consequences are, right? It's all about that moment in court. It's all about, how it goes in front of the judge. And so the civil legal strategy is a strategy that understands that there are just sort of processes and things that take time. And if you're able to keep the somebody else on their toes, basically the idea being the best defense is a good offense, right? Then you can kind of gum up the works and keep the other parent busy and gummed up so that they can't gain the advantage and you can. And so let me tell you what happened in my case. So again, I'll start over my personal story, and the chat's open. I'm looking at the chat, so feel free to jump in and say what you feel. I'm open to criticisms. I'm open to thoughts and prayers. I'm open to questions. I'll do my best. I've never done anything like this before in my life. Necessity is a mother of invention. I made something to help people like me and like others. And so this is in one part to educate everybody about my story so that I can then help share something I made to help people avoid this outcome. And so here we go. So I met the mother of my daughter in 2021. We met during the pandemic. We dated for about 3 months, and then 3 months into our relationship, we decided to make a baby. So yeah, perhaps not the decision that everybody would have made themselves. And so you might ask yourself, why is it a seemingly sane-ish person-looking person would would make a child with somebody they've only known for a few months? Well, it was the pandemic, and I had been in isolation like a lot of us for a long time. And one thing that became really, really clear is that tomorrow is not promised to you. And so having a mother who's older and having the sober realization that a lot of people around me could poof out of existence because of something I never saw coming, my appreciation for the fragility of life and the importance of not sitting on things you care about, but acting on them against your fears. Yeah, I decided to sort of live more in that category. My mother um, is 80 years old right now, and she worked in retirement homes as a nurse, and so she was around people a lot in the last days of their lives and stuff like that. And I remember sometimes when she would come home and I would have questions about stuff like that. And I remember her telling me that, like, because I was really curious. We all have a morbid curiosity about death, right? And so I was really curious about the kind of things that people who know they're going, who know they're dying, like what kind of things are they worried about? And I think what I kind of picked up as a common theme after probing my mom annoyingly with questions that she didn't really know why I was asking, but I was trying to build a knowledge graph in my mind about what people really care about. Because when you're dying, you're dying. You got no one to impress. And so that I thought was like a very honest, sobering moment to look at human beings and understand what's important to them. And if there's one thing that kept coming up as a common theme, it's that people always regretted listening to other people during the course of their life. There is this theme of like, if like you youngin, listen to me. If there's one thing that I wish I could impart upon you, it's this: your cousin, uncle, husband, wife, father, whoever it is who's telling you that you can't do a thing, or embeds in you or a deep sense of, hey, you shouldn't feel comfortable doing a thing. Don't listen to them, and/or if you do, you may regret it down the road. You regret the things you regret all the shots you didn't take, right? You don't regret the ones you did, even if though they didn't go your way, because you learned something. And so the one consistent theme was people. The regret that's the most common regret I hear about is, I wish I wasn't so swayed by dictated by other people's desires, because at the end of the day they died 20 years ago and everything they said is wrong. Or so I just realized, like, heed that, Chris. Heed the fact that people for whom you have fear or who you're concerned about their opinions about you maybe are people who one day you might realize didn't deserve that kind of attention, right? And so you know so with the kind of that in mind, I was in the pandemic, and yes, I meet somebody and we hadn't been together very long, but this person seemed to me very reasonable. And this person, who I'd been dating for a very short period of time, and yeah, we kind of arrived at a similar place. It was like, look, we both realize that life is fleeting, and it's the pandemic. It made us sort of realize that, look, maybe we should just have a baby, right? And if we go ahead and if we do this seemingly crazy thing, then we can take the lessons that we've learned through this insane time and we can crystallize into something positive, which is a human being, a human life. And so that was the decision. Frankly, if I were to just sort of sum it all up, we did not get there lightly, right? So obviously we did not know each other that well. We'd only been dating for about 3 months when that decision was made. And so how did two people who I will say were seemingly sane arrive there? Well, here's how. So basically we sat down and we mapped it out. We said, okay, look, if we were actually going to do this and make a child, what does that require? And we planned it out. We looked at the first 2 years of life, then we kind of scaled it back to the first year of life for the child, and then we scaled this like the first 3 months of life for the child. And we tried to understand, okay, what are the requirements? How much is it going to cost? And we took the time and gamed it out. And after taking about a week or so to really talk about it and investigate it, a week isn't very long, but in pandemic time, it felt like long enough. It wasn't. During that time, we gained it out, and we came to the sort of conclusion that, all right, I think we can do this. I think we can have a kid. Now, my biggest concern: we both had good jobs, I'd been working at the company I'm still at and was at then for I think about 6 years at that point, or 7 years, right? It'll be 10 years this July that I've been working there. And she'd been working for the city for about 20 years. And so we both had stable jobs. Family seemed stable enough. Didn't seem like there were any mental health issues. It just kind of did that sort of like check. And so there's kind of like a preliminary one-on-one check. But I at that point I was a 43-year-old man, and I had never had a child. And there's a reason. The reason I didn't have a child is because I waited. I waited until I felt like I could trust myself to be a reliable enough person to not only be a present or providing father, but a good father. I unfortunately did not have my father around me as much as I would have liked growing up. He passed away when I was 13 years old. And I can count on one hand how many times I remember seeing him during the course of my life. Every single one of those memories were very positive and they were beautiful. However, they were obviously infrequent. And so for me, what was important is to recognize that, like, okay, it's not only good enough to bring someone wonderful into the world, but you need to be able to be there for them. And so when I, felt that I found somebody for whom I could trust to make sure that we were going to have a good support system for our child, and that I felt like, even if things don't go good, I think this is still a person who has enough moral character that we're going to be able to be good parents regardless. I took a risk I normally would not have taken, and decided that we should, let's go ahead and do this. We're both, at the time she was 41. And so it's like, all right, that window of time is closing. So if we want to do this, we don't have a lot of time. So all that to say, after some deliberation, but not enough, we decided to, after gaming it out, planning the finances, planning the first few months of life, go ahead and make a baby. And so we started trying. I think we started trying in January of 2022. And, during the process of trying, I started to notice a few things that were troubling to me. One thing I noticed, for instance, is that she's a little jealous. She's jealous. Now it happens. I'm a person who, I've got a lot of friends. I've got a lot of male friends. I've got a lot of female friends, and like friends, actual friends. And so I think that that could be something that is suspicious, as it should be often, and is something that doesn't make every woman comfortable. I'm a heterosexual, like, cisgendered male, dating women, and so yeah, it's not all women are like, hey, like, you're a female friend. It doesn't matter if you guys have been friends since you're 5. I don't know if I trust you guys alone together. And so I've learned over the years that, like, I am not for all markets, right? There are some people for whom a person who doesn't really care, or doesn't really seem to put a lot of import, whether or not his friends are male or female, maybe that person isn't going to have the sensitivities that are required to sort of be attentive to somebody's insecurities around that, right? And so, that's just the reality of something. It's not something I've been willing to edit. I'm friends with everybody, right? And so all that to say, it's not about me. It's about what that taught me about this person. And what it taught me is, yeah, they didn't want women around me. Okay, so it's a little weird, but it happens. The second thing that I noticed is that they were prone to rages, and so they would have these sort of these freakouts, and that's not something I'm used to. I'm not a person who yells, and I'm a person who has that. That's not my style. I'm not a person who, when they're angry, I'm just not my style. And so I just wasn't used to being with somebody who was like that. And so I started to think to myself, well, maybe perhaps this is not a good idea. After I started noticing these behaviors more and more and more. And part of me was kind of doing a benefit of the doubt thing, where I was like, maybe this is a reaction to the pressures of this task. This is a giant undertaking we're undergoing. But as time went on, I started to realize it was maybe something else. And so what happened is, I want to say, I think it was the night of February 22nd, I believe, of 2022. Her and I had a fight. What happened was, I noticed this kind of weird pattern where when it started getting dark at night, and I know this sounds crazy, but it's the truth. I noticed that whenever the sun went down, like, she'd start, like, her personality would change. Like we'd be hanging out in the daytime, and everything's good. And once it gets like 5, 6 p.m., like, it starts getting a little dark, like something would piss her off, and she'd start getting angry. And then she would start putting me down, just saying things that were not right. And so, this was enough for me to like be like, okay, I think we should stop this operation. And so, I think we attempted like maybe twice, and I said, you know what, I think we should put this operation on pause for now, because I think that perhaps we need to sort of look at the situation a little deeper. And so, she agreed, and uh, the I think we had a sort of altercation that night. I think it was around the birthday time of the birthday. Took her out to a spa, then to dinner, did some stuff, but then it got dark, and then things flipped, and I said, you know what, I think perhaps this is not something that makes sense anymore. Not just in terms of making a baby, but maybe we should reconsider the whole relationship idea, right? I think I realized at that point that this. So again, we are in the late February 2022 at this point. Um, so I realized that perhaps there were some flags I should pay attention to. However, the next morning was actually an interview for the job I have today. Been working at the same company for a long time, but after about 7 years in one role, I transitioned to another role. And so the morning of my job interview, about 2 hours before my interview, she let me know that she had done a pregnancy test the night before, and that it came out positive, and that we're gonna have a baby. And I was like, all right. So that's not exactly how we discussed approaching it, but what else? Like, great, that's good news. Let me go do this interview. It looks like I don't need that money, that raise more than I thought. So I fortunately got the job, and sort of start to sort of wrestle with the idea that I was going to be a father, but then also was wrestling with the idea that like we had an agreement, which is that when we found out that she was pregnant, if it worked, we would check in and we would sort of adjust and steer. So one thing you're going to notice is there's a common theme here, which is that we discussed something, but you should get things in writing, and or make sure you capture, have a record of things, because it's just hearsay if I tell you that, right? There's no proof of me saying, like, I'm telling you a thing that happened. You have no reason to believe me other than your own impulses and instincts and knowledge. So I recognize that. I recognize when I tell you something without proof, um, yeah, I could just be a guy who seems fine, but you just don't know. So uh, that's when it was around the time when I started to think, hey, I need to be a guy who is more attentive in documenting things. And so, um, all that to say, gonna have a baby. All right. So at this point, I'm 43 years old. I wanted to have a father. I wanted to be a father my entire life. I had all kinds of things planned. I was like, okay, if it's like a boy or girl, it doesn't matter. We're gonna do these like weekly excursions where we go to different parks all over the city, and I'm gonna like go and research and find out what flora and fauna there are, and like the common sort of animals and whatever you can find there. And we'll create like a scavenger hunt checklist. So it'll be like a sciencey excursion. I had all kinds of crazy ideas about, and ideas that are still going to play out about what kind of adventures I wanted to go on with my child, and the kind of father I wanted to be. And the idea is simple. I think children are like naturally born scientists. I think children have a spark in them that they're all born with. And I think that the sad reality is that a lot of parents are the perpetrators of snuffing those lights out. I think that a lot of kids learn that they can't do things, or that things are bad, and they don't extend themselves and take risks. And so what I decided is, I said, no, I want my daughter to be safe and healthy, but I want her to explore. I want her to be an open, free spirit. And so that's kind of always been my ethos. And so yeah, so I approached everything in terms of being a dad that way, empowering my daughter, making sure I keep her safe, making sure that she grows in a big way. The world is a changing world, it's expanding. So it's important that she be up to date, that she doesn't lag behind, that she also be in line with the other kids out there. And so, yeah, those are the kind of things I had in mind. And though I was having some difficulties here and there with the mother of my child at the time, who was at this point, let's go to the point where we're about maybe 3 months or so into the pregnancy. So she's 3 months pregnant. At this point, we are in May of 2022. And I met her during the pandemic. So again, my name is Chris. I am the father of a toddler named Nova, who was disappeared back on February 27th, 2025, and she disappeared with the use of something called the silver bullet legal strategy, which is a really damaging and terrible crime of the legal strategy used to destroy parents and abuse children legally. So this is my story, and I made something to help solve this problem, not only for myself, but for others, and to protect our children from this crime. So, as I was saying, back to my story to give you some context about what I've created here to try to help. Uh, May 2022, 3 months pregnant, about 2 weeks after telling her parents that she was going to have a baby, her parents left the city. So her parents have a home in an island that is here in Canada, and it's a remote island, but it is still in the province of Quebec. And so, which is where I live. I live in Montreal, Quebec here. And so this island they are from originally from this island, this small island. And so it's a deep part of the heritage of the family. So I'm a Black male, and the mother of my daughter is a white Francophone woman. I should actually qualify and say she is a white bilingual woman, and that will be meaningful a little bit later on in this story. So what happened is in May of 2022, a few months into the pregnancy at this point, she has been without her parents for quite some time. Why is that? Because when her parents found out she was pregnant, rather than modulate their usual schedule, they're what you would probably call snowbirds, right? The weather gets cold, they take off and go to their other home. So at this point, we were talking about February. Let's go back to February of 2022. At the end of February 23rd, we just find out that she is pregnant and she's having a baby, and we're having a baby, I should say. And though we had some discussion about the protocols around when we would find out how we would deal with that, those protocols went out the window, and I paid no mind to that because, the moment's here, we're going to do it, and that's it. And so, I noticed that it was hard not to notice that about 2 weeks after the discovery that she was pregnant, her parents took off, and they left Montreal for 6 months. And so for that 6 months, I cared for her that entire time. Now, why did her parents take off? So they are snowbirds. Snowbirds means that they have a home somewhere warm, and they prefer to go there when the weather's warm. And so they usually spend a lot of the year there and really come back here to Montreal, because they have an elderly parent who lives upstairs, and they have a property here, and they have 2 kids who live here in Montreal. But it's really up to them. They would ideally be there, right? And we all know that as you get grayer and grayer, and as there are more days behind you than there are ahead of you, you start to crave more comfort, and because you've earned comfort. And so her parents spend a lot of time there. So in this home they have in this secluded island that is here in the province of Quebec, in Canada. So the point is that 3 months into this, they are, she's not really talking to them too much. It's kind of weird. I had met her parents. We had dinner. They'd invited me over for dinner a few times. I had helped with a birthday party for her mother. I had her sister, the boyfriend was a performer. I had gone to his show, taken a bunch of pictures for it, and I was not a stranger. I knew these people, but however, again, fairly brief. And we let them know what our plan was before the baby arrived, or at least I understood that was what had happened. And so, though it was kind of brief and kind of sudden, it was clear to me that, she's reasonable, I'm reasonable. We're both very much we like to plan A, B, C, D, E, F contingency plans. And so, hey, there are some people for whom it makes sense to make a baby with somebody you just met if you see that all the boxes are crossed. And so, though I understood her parents may not have been thrilled, or because it's a kind of scary thing, kind of new, it's kind of weird, it's very modern and very unconventional in terms of family dynamics, it made sense at the time for us. And so her parents disappeared, and they went to their island, as far as I could tell, and that was kind of weird for me. But who cares? A baby's coming, and so during that time, I'm like any person who's expecting their first child, equal parts nervous, equal parts excited. As time progresses, I'm the kind of guy that, like, I want to be there for everything and do every little thing. I don't I like to capture things. I back I think in like 2011 made a promise to myself to take photos every single day of my life. And so what I've been doing since 2011 is I take photos every single day with my phone. And it seems like a silly thing, but it turned out to be kind of significant, where the events that followed are concerned. And so over the years, I developed sort of the habit of just like, oh yeah, like make sure I capture something of use today, or something that tells me something about the day, so I can sort of reflect and have some sort of, even if I don't understand the context, have some sort of representation of what that day was to me. Just to make sure that no day of my life goes unaccounted for in my memory if I choose to revisit it, right? And so I have this sort of fortunate record of myself getting better at photography. I certainly sucked, and also capturing moments of my life that are kind of unconventional or just kind of seemingly random, but that actually have pretty interesting stories, and they help me develop my ability to tell stories as well. Because I would take a picture, people would be like, "Well, what was that picture they did about?" And I would have a passionate response, and I was able to sort of use that energy to tell my stories, and so I always enjoyed that. And so all this is to say that photography very important, and I'm going to be a father. And at this point, I'm retelling the story of how I became a father and how my daughter was disappeared. My daughter was disappeared in February of 2027 with the help of something called the Silver Bullet Legal Strategy. And what I've decided to do is start this live stream impromptu, because I created something to help other people who find themselves in my situation. And I also want to spread the word in the hopes of reconnecting and holding my daughter as soon as possible. Anyways, back to the story. So uh, if we go back to May of 2022, the mother of my daughter and I at this point were 3 months into a pregnancy, I believe, 3 months. Uh, and yeah, I was starting to notice things like jealousy, anger, and I was thinking, well, okay, so she's pregnant. I've never really had this close proximity with somebody who is pregnant, especially my child. And like, I thought that perhaps what I was observing were a lot of the unspoken fors, or a lot of the je ne sais quoi, the nuances of a situation that are only make it tangibly real when you're in it. Meaning, maybe this is how people are when they're pregnant. Maybe when people are pregnant, 3 months pregnant, they have rages. Maybe when people are 3 months pregnant, they will throw stuff and swear and belittle you. So I wasn't sure. So of course I did a little bit of research, realized that wasn't necessarily common, and because it was the pandemic, I talked to my friends. I met somebody, and this was a time when I was doing the pandemic dating thing, right? So some of us were on those apps, and or having experiences that were unorthodox. And so I'll say this is that being in a situation like a pandemic makes you realize that time is fleeting and tomorrow isn't promised. And so that was one of the motivations for me to go ahead and decide to make a baby with somebody who I didn't know very well, only after dating for 3 months in the pandemic. And now one of the main motivators again was my mother is an 80-year-old woman, and I wanted her to have a grandkid at the same time. Yeah, that's not a reason to make a baby. So all that to say, I wanted to be a father my whole life, and I was happy to get that news, even though there was some peril down the road. And so we are now in September of 2022, and we are expecting our daughter in about a month. So at this point, I've known the mother of my daughter for about 11 months, and she has been pregnant for about 8 or 7 of those months. And so effectively at this point, it's like, all right, our daughter is coming soon, and a lot has happened during the course of the pregnancy. During the course of the pregnancy, I've come to realize a few things. One, I've come to realize that a lot of things I was told or that she told me were just not true. I realized that a lot of stories about friends or things that were part of her regular life just weren't true. I came to realize that she had really difficult relationships with pretty much everyone in her life, with very few exceptions. Her parents, namely her father and her, had a really bad relationship. They couldn't talk on the phone because the moment the mom would call, if the father was in the background, he started screaming. And there were many times, several times, where I would just listen to like her. I'd hear her mom like, oh, kind of like think of like Charlie Brown's teacher style in the background. And I'd hear like screaming, and it's like the dad, and then she'd get free. So they didn't have a good relationship, her and her father, and her and her mother had a strained relationship. She felt that her mother favored her younger sister, and that was always a source of, I guess, discomfort for her, and fueled a lot of unhappy feelings for her. And so, yeah, like we all have issues. We're all working through stuff, and especially given the pandemic, especially given the stresses of that time, I was not going to be one to start pointing fingers, glass houses and all that stuff. And so, though I understood the particular stresses of this situation, I was also alarmed, right? As anyone I think would be, that you've made a decision to make a child with somebody who you don't really know. And as you're getting to know them, you realize that perhaps some of the assumptions and bets you made were, I don't know, 100% wrong. Some sobering truth. And so what happened is, about in September, a few things were clear. Now, at this point, we had it all really gamed out. And this was the plan. For the first 2 months of our daughter's life, for the first 3 weeks of our daughter's life, we were going to live in her apartment. I should say that this entire time we still have our two respective apartments. We never lived together. And I should also say that though I had brought up the idea of us ending our relationship the night before we found out that we were with child, that we did like pretty much really, really, really like over it, like I think around May of 2022. And so, one of the agreements we made was that regardless of our relationship status, we were going to co-parent together, we were going to do this together. And that was why I waited 43 years to make a baby with somebody who I felt pretty confident was the right choice. I learned to rethink that decision down the road. And so effectively, in September of 2022, about a month away from having a child, a few disturbing things started to really, really come into focus. One is that I was really her only support. She had a younger sister who was still in the city, but that younger sister and her had a really, really strained relationship. And that younger sister and her, so I was really it. She told me stories about having lots of friends, and friends that were coworkers, or friends that were old friends from school, or friends from different places. But the truth is, I think I met like two acquaintances, and one of them told me that they had only reconnected with her like that week for the first time in many years, and only knew her from bus rides and very casually, even though she'd spoken about her like they were best friends. And so, you're like, all right, like, there's some stuff going on here, but my focus is on, okay, I'm gonna be a dad, and it does all these things are superfluous when it comes to raising a child. Okay, like, yeah, afterthoughts when it comes to like, okay, we're having a kid now. Yeah, I should have worried, should have, would have, could have, but it's the positive and the wonderfulness of having a child outweighs these things. We'll just work with those things as they come along. So our parents had been gone for this. Her parents left 3 weeks, 2 weeks or so after just learning that we were going to have a child. And so by September of 2022, a month before the birth of our daughter, her parents returned then. And so they had been gone, I think, basically from the beginning of March of 2022 till September of 2022, because they're snowbirds. They have a home on an island, as well as their home that they own in Montreal, and they spend most of their time there. And their daughter, their $41 daughter, being pregnant with the first baby of that generation, their first grandkid. You're snowbird, you commit hard. They left, and they had a strained relationship anyways. And so during that time, I cared for her. So when I say I cared for the mother of my daughter, what do I mean? Well, she was diagnosed with placenta previa about I want to say 3 months or so into the pregnancy, or 4 months into the pregnancy. For those of you who don't know what placenta previa is, it's basically a condition where the child is in such a position or is entangled in such a way that they likely will not be able to be born the natural way. You're probably gonna have to have a C-section. And so for the mother of my daughter, that was a huge, huge, huge like she saw that as like almost sacrilegious, even though sadly, biology and the best interest of the child determine whether or not the baby is born naturally. She really took issue with the idea that she may not have a natural birth. And so that was the source of a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. And so we used to talk about it a lot. And what I used to do is I would go to her home on average about 3 to 4 days a week. I mean, we talk constantly, we're texting all the time about having a kid, we're planning things. And so again, I'm going back in time telling my story. We're now back in September of 2022, and the mother of my child is 1 month away from having our daughter, Nova. And Nova is our first child. At the time, she was 41 years old, and I was 43. And so, effectively, we are getting ready to have our kid, and her parents come back after disappearing for 6 months. They found out that she was having a baby about 2 weeks or so after we found out we were going to have a kid, and her parents took off to their other place. And so during the time that they were gone, what did I do? I went to her house 3-4 days a week, stayed in constant communication. She, because of a placenta previa diagnosis, was not able to move a lot. So when you have placenta previa, it means you got to stay pretty inactive. And so I was like, all right, let's kick it up. So what did I do? I got an office chair for her. She had a job where it does not facilitate her working from home, but her manager was able, thankfully, to make an exception, to have her work from home. So I got her a 2-monitor setup, nice keyboard and mouse, an office chair, a sort of dock to connect to her laptop to, so she'd have a good thing. Got her some speakers, computer speakers, headset, made sure that she had a comfortable environment to work from home. Her home was not suited for that. She basically set herself up in her dining room on wooden dining room table, and is now a mother who is expecting but has a medical condition that also means you can't sit upright. Ideally, when you have placenta previa, you'd be lying down for the whole pregnancy if it is the type of placenta previa that she had. And so effectively, we're back in September 2022, a month before the birth of our daughter. And at this point, I've gotten into the habit of going to her home 3 or 4 days a week and vacuuming her entire home. And so why was I vacuuming her home, 3 or 4 times a week? Well, she had 2 cats and a dog, and I'm really, really allergic to cats, and I'm allergic to dogs. And so going over, just visiting, I would have these these kind of allergic reactions. And so it was kind of like for my own necessity to clean the place off. I'm not a clean freak, but like she certainly did not hold cleaning standards the same level I do. And so the place often would trigger allergies the moment I walked through the door. And it got to the point where I took an old broken Roomba I had and fixed it to the point where it would work. And I just gave her that. And I was like, that Roomba would run daily, so that when I would come to her place to kind of vacuum or do additional cleaning, it would do some of the heavy lifting for me. I would also clean her bathtub and do her laundry and fold her laundry and put away her laundry. And so I do groceries. And it's like, yeah, this is going to be the mother of my child. And so my job is to make sure that she's good. And so I would spend 3-4 days a week, of course, in contact every day, but of course, making sure she's good, making sure her food's good. I wanted to make sure she was comfortable because I knew it was very difficult dealing with placenta previa. So I loaned her a surround sound system to help her out. I helped her buy a TV, and of course set up, installed it. Helped her buy an air conditioner. Of course, went and picked it up and found it and installed it. I bought smart speakers for every room in our house. So what was really good is that when we had questions about kids, she could just say, okay, G word, and ask a question and deal with that anxiety. I was noticing just these constant buildups of anxiety, stress, rages, angers. And this is, of course, these are the things that happen when a baby's coming. These are the things that happen to all of us, but they were happening with such increasing frequency that I was starting to think that maybe I wasn't just looking at some version of postpartum, or I wasn't just looking at maybe something else is going on. So I was trying to synthesize all this at the same time. And so By September, a month before the birth of our daughter, a few things had occurred. One, her parents had just returned after being away for 6 months, leaving me to care for her during the course of the pregnancy. Two, I'd sort of gotten used to the cadence of rages that happen when it got dark, which is weird, and the fact that I would be weathering insults and put downs often because that was just the way she dealt with things. Three is that she was really not accepting of the fact that we were no longer together. And so even though the relationship ended effectively in February of 2022, but I would say even I going back and reading the text messages, it was like I was kind of like trying to be careful, like I don't want to, but at the same time, we didn't have any interactions and things were really definitely over no later than like I'd say May of 2022. So we met in late September, early October of 2021. In February 2022, we discovered that we were going to have a baby that we decided to and planned to have purposefully. And shortly thereafter discovering that, her parents took off for 6 months to their other home and left her alone, for whom I cared for her during that time. And if we go back to then October of 2022, or sorry, September of 2022, we're a month before the birth of our daughter, and I'm noticing a lot of things that are troubling, knowing that I'm about to have a baby with somebody in a month, and I'm seeing things. What am I seeing? Frequent rages, lots of jealousy, and she confided in me that because of feelings that she had about herself, and because she felt she deserved it, she was hurting herself. And so, she confided in me that she was hurting herself at about 7 months, 8 months pregnant, right? And so I think I did what anyone would have done when the mother of your soon-to-be child tells you that she is frustrated with herself, and so she's hurting herself while she's pregnant with your child. Is you freak out, then you try to find a way to support her and make sure you do what's best for her and for your child. And so what I did is I just upped the ante, right? I stayed even closer. I provided even more support. And then she would tell me, stories about how, yeah, she just doesn't feel good, and how, the idea of us not being up together is making this so much harder. And she would do things like when we were in the apartment together, let's say I was cleaning or helping her out, she'd come and smack me in the butt, and I'd be like, it's a very awkward thing, right? Like you broke up with somebody, you decide you're not having a child with, you're not having a relationship with them, but you have a kid with them. They've got a lot going on emotionally. Their parents abandoned them. You're the only one caring for them, and they're having difficulty accepting the fact that the relationship's not going forward. But so yeah, so like though that didn't feel right, and I did not like that. I didn't like the idea that she didn't respect the boundary from time to time of like pretending that it was okay by hitting, like, smacking my butt, or I would tell you, can you not do that? She's like, oh, I'm sorry, and she would start, crying, saying, I just, I have a hard time, and so I empathize, man. I understood. It's like, yeah, this is a crazy situation. It turned out to be one. We decided to make a baby at a time when it made sense. Now, regardless of the situation, it seems like perhaps there are some second thoughts on at least one of our parts, and yeah, and it's proving to be difficult. So we have our daughter in October of 2022. It was the most incredible moment of my life. 3 weeks after the birth of our daughter, without warning, she moved in with her parents and prevented my access to our daughter. I ended up taking her to court with a safeguard order in order to regain access to my daughter, which I regained access to that day. So now we are fast forwarding to February of 2023. By February of 2023, the situation has deteriorated to the point where she will no longer let me see our daughter or have visits with our daughter, and has moved in with her parents without warning. And a lot transpired during that time, but needless to say, it was a very, very difficult period. And I started going to the police. I started consulting people I know and telling them, look, I have a 3-week-old daughter. The mother of this daughter decided to deny my access to our daughter. And I don't know why. She didn't tell me why. I'm just like, it's crazy. She moved with her parents, and I was just in a place of panic. And I learned something very difficult right then and there. And it was that there was something called de facto sole custody. This is something that she clearly knew about that I didn't. De facto sole custody is when you have a child with somebody, if you're not married, or whatever the case is, if the mother decides, hey, you know what, I don't like this, and just like moves, just goes somewhere like she did. She didn't. She kind of stealth moved in with her parents. That means that in the eyes of the law, as of that moment, she has sole custody of the child. So it doesn't matter if whatever the other circumstances are, the way the law, as I understand it, and as it was exercised in my case, the way it works is if the mother decides to just unilaterally, without consulting the father, just leave with the child, that that act alone changes the custody. So you no longer have shared custody of your kid. Now it's sole custody. Nothing else needs to happen. The mom just needs to decide, well, I'm good, and take off. And so, sadly, I learned that that was the change in my legal status as the shared custodian of my daughter after I lost that status when the mother of our daughter moved in with her parents without warning. And so basically, I was left to kind of, number one, deal with the trauma of having a newborn child taken away from me. Two, be in a position where I couldn't, like, what are you gonna do? Like, I can't show up at her house because I sensed that it just felt, I didn't want to cause stress. I didn't want to, it's just a really difficult situation to be in. And then of course at this point it's been months and months and months of lots of difficult emotional ups and downs and a lot of stuff. But our daughter Nova is born October 22nd. She's the most beautiful and incredible and healthy child. She's incredible. And so that that sort of wonderfulness helped surf through a lot of the difficulties. Uh, so why did I end up having to take her mother to court? I ended up having to take her mother to court, and we ultimately went to court for the first time in February of 2023 because I started to suspect that her mother had decided that she was going to leave and flee with our daughter, basically kidnap our daughter without telling me. It's kind of how kidnapping works. So again, that's a pretty extreme thing to say that you piece together, you suspect somebody was doing, right? So how did I get there? Well, sadly, after moving in with her parents and not explaining why, I started to sense that her parents didn't want me around either. When I would go visit my daughter every single day, I started feeling like I wasn't wanted there. And I started to fear that her parents or her would decide they didn't want me seeing my daughter anymore. And as any newborn parent can tell you, that's a desperately scary notion. And so I came up with a solution as I was coming to see my daughter every day, even though I could tell they didn't want me doing that. I said, hey, I'm going to go out. I'm just going to decide my visits are 3 hours from now on. And I imposed, or I proposed a 3 hour visitation schedule. I was coming for 5 hours or even longer. It's our newborn baby. And I was noticing like things that were very difficult. Like, for instance, I would be with my daughter and I was never alone with her. The mom would always be in the room, or the mother of my daughter's mother. So let's say my daughter's grandmother on her mom's side would always be in the room, or the grandfather would always be around, or the mother. It's like, why am I not alone with my baby? Like, why? First off, why am I here? Why aren't we going with our plan to raise our kid together? And then secondly, why am I always being hovered around as if I'm being watched? And so, but again, newborn baby, a lot's going on. At this point, I'm back at work, and it was just a lot to try to manage. And if there's one thing that became clear to me via the discussions I had with other people, it's not like, look, man, having a baby is crazy. So there is no playbook, and it's hard to understand the shape of the insanity that you're going to weather. So I figured it was all part of this experience, and I was just doing my best to support her and make sure our daughter was healthy and safe. And thankfully, that was certainly the case. However, after she moved in to her parents' home without consulting me or letting me know, and basically lying and saying she was going to stay there for a night, and then it turned out to be more than a night. I started to have even more concerns when I started to notice signs that she may have been planning to flee. What was I noticing? One, they were kind of like old fashioned types in terms of like her and her family weren't at the time very like super technologically savvy or really into that kind of stuff. And so really, she learned about Amazon and Amazon Prime from, watching me. I guess it's a weird thing to say, but the point is that so basically she, about 5 months into our relationship, got an Amazon Prime subscription, and so would order things to her own apartment and would also order things to her parents' apartment for her parents. And so when I was doing the visits after our daughter was born, 3 weeks after our daughter was born, she moved in with her mother, with her parents, without warning. I would go to her parents' home and go see our daughter, and I was under these 3-hour time restrictions with her family always around, and I started noticing packages arriving that were like backpacks and like I think it was like a suitcase, just like stuff that looked very travel-y. And so it occurred to me, it's like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Like at this point, we're in the February of 2023, and so her parents usually go away to the island or go away to their other home, right? Around that time, they did it the year before when they found out their daughter was pregnant, and they left in March of 2022. And they did something. It felt to me like they were about to do something similar, which is they were going to leave and go to the island. Because yeah, like I'm there in this little window of time with my daughter. Amazon packages are arriving, delivery people are showing up, and it's the kind of it was just things that to me were just very much like, hey, we're going on a trip soon, kind of items, right? I can't enumerate them all now, but they're documented. And so I asked, I was like, hey, you guys going to the island, whatever? And they were like, no, we're not going. It was like, oh, okay. So that was weird because I would have expected if I'm seeing things arrive in the mail that look like things I would associate with going on a trip. The trip you take every year is about probably going to happen. Maybe you have them on schedule, but they said they weren't going. So that was weird. And then I started to notice that um, the behaviors from the mother of our daughter went from being aloof and sort of randomly, sort of emotionally swings and being explosive to being really antagonistic towards me. She had already sort of had a habit of kind of putting me down and saying things that were negative. And again, I attributed that to the difficulties of pregnancy, the difficulties of having to have a C-section rather than natural birth, which was really heartbreaking for her, which I definitely understood. The stresses of wanting to be with the father of your child, but it really is an arrangement. It really is a co-parenting arrangement. It really isn't a relationship. And so the difficulty of that, being somebody who's in your 40s and having a child, that's difficult on its own. Being a woman's difficult on its own. Like, there were just so many different variables that were weighing on her that just made it very easy for me to hold space for her, even if that was not something that she was capable of doing for even herself, right? And so, basically, you know, uh, after sensing that they didn't want me around and that me coming to see my daughter every day was an issue, I started to notice that she started getting really negative with comments she's making. And then what I started to notice is a bit of a weird theme emerging, which was that there was a bit of revisionist history that would get snuck into conversations whenever there was a third party. And basically, she was telling lies about conversations we had in the past that we never had, or agreements we'd had that we never made. So I'll give you one example. I believe it was in December. So our daughter was born in October of 2022. A couple of months later, in December of 2022. At this point, I'm seeing a lot of really problematic behaviors. At this point, she's moved in with her parents unilaterally without giving me any information, and has been living there for quite some time, a couple months or a month or so at that point. And I don't like what I'm feeling, and I'm noticing there's this weird thing where suddenly I'm being treated like I'm a deadbeat dad, even though at this point I've been a father for a month and a half, 2 months, and she moved with her parents. And what do I mean by that? So, at this point, our daughter is about, I want to say, in December, she's about a month and a half, going on 2 months old. And, every single day I'm going to visit my daughter and her mother at their parents' house. And I'm staying there for 3 hours a day, every day. I want to be with my baby and just try to understand and orient myself and do what's necessary. And I can't help but notice uh, that the tone towards me is not only getting more negative, but it's getting like weird. So I, at one point, I was like, "Hey, like, do you need diapers? Like, or you obviously, I can see there's stuff there in the house. They had lots of things. Lots of the family's friends had given tons and tons of clothes. They were trying Tupperwares of clothes and abundances of stuff in the parents' home that seemed to be ready for their grandchild, my daughter. And but at the same time, I'm going there every day. And like, I'm the dad. Like, okay, do you need anything? Like, and I think I asked that question, or probably about a month or so after my daughter was born. So I'd say about a week or so after she moved in with her parents, which is 3 weeks after our daughter's birth. And I remember her saying something to the effect of, like, "Oh, you finally are offering help," or "My father is unhappy because you never offer to help." And this was like a response to me being like, "Hey, you want some? Should I pick up diapers on my way?" At this point, at that point, I hadn't even like considered the possibility that her and her parents would be framing me as a bad father, which is kind of crazy, right? Like, I was like, okay, she's obviously going through something very difficult. She's moved in with her parents. She's definitely somebody who struggles with emotional regulation, but whatever at this point, you know, um, I got to roll the punches. I'm a new father. I'm dealing with all those things, and I'm just trying to make sure she's okay, make sure our daughter's okay, and just kind of keep my head above water to make sure that I'm able to weather the storm as best as possible and be a good dad, right? So I found it weird that when I offered to buy diapers, that the reaction I got was that I had somehow the implication was that I was a person who wasn't keen on helping. When at that point, during the course of the pregnancy, I'd certainly helped quite a bit. And so I decided to rent that in there. I was like, all right. I did the next day go buy diapers. I took a picture of the diapers, and then I, took a picture of the receipt, of course, and I brought the diapers. And the response that she had to the diapers was to scream and say, "This is during a visit, right?" I was only seeing her at her parents' home for 3 hours a day. She refused to leave the home with our daughter, and I didn't want to put pressure on that because she wanted her parents' support. So a newborn daughter, and even though she moved in with her parents without letting me know, and it was kind of random out of nowhere, and lied about it initially, I wasn't going to hold that against her. Let's focus on what's best for our daughter. Let's put our energies there. And so what happened is oh, looks like I lost the picture for a moment here. Let me just bear with me here, guys. So basically, what happened is I, at that point, said, "Okay, look, I'm going to start documenting the efforts I'm making here because it seems like there might be a counter narrative building about me maybe not being a supportive person, and I don't know where this is going. I've never done this, and it's all just messy, but whatever." Okay, so I take a picture of the diapers and I bring them anyways. The reaction I get is that uh, those aren't the brand I buy. You didn't check with me, and it was really a negative reaction to the diapers. Now I checked the diaper number before I went and bought diapers, and I think she was a number one at that time, and so I bought diapers that were number one, understanding that that's the size. But there was a big freak out. I think I bought Huggies, and they used Pampers, and it was ill received, and it was very strange. All right, so a little while after that, I think it was like a week or so after that, I remember having discussions. So now we're in January of 2023. We were having discussions, and I was like, "Look, man, like, what's going on? Why are you here?" Number one, like, why does it feel like I'm being watched when I'm with our daughter? Why haven't I been alone with our baby? Two, I haven't been able to spend overnight with our baby since you moved. You just moved in with your parents without explanation. And so I was kind of like trying to understand like what were the needs that weren't being met. What could I do to help without applying too much pressure? but at the same, because her well-being is directly tied to the well-being of her daughter. And so I decided to just do my best to stay close, keep my ear close to the ground, support her as best as I could, but also try to be like, hey, what are you doing here? Like, let's get out of here. I'll give you what you need. I'll help support you if you want to go back to your apartment, if you want to come back to my apartment, whatever. Like, let's what do you need to be able to feel more secure so that this situation can come to an end? Because it was very difficult for me as a parent to a new child to try to be there for my daughter, but feel it's in an environment that's highly controlled, highly watched for reasons I don't understand, and it's just weird and uncomfortable and just not good. And so um, she then uh, said that, hey, look, I moved in here because you kicked me out of the house. I was like, "Oh, what? What do you mean kick you out?" And she said, yeah, you kicked me out into the streets, and so I had no choice to move with my parents. This was in, I believe, a phone conversation we were having. I believe it was in December. We're going back to December of 2022. She moved in with her parents, and I was trying to understand what that was with our newborn baby. And then she falsely claimed that I had kicked her out of my apartment, and that's why she moved with her parents. And she said this on a phone call. So that's when I was like, uh-oh, something's up. I don't understand what's up, but something is up. And so what I did at that point is I really started to do my research. I started to sort of go online and just try to understand, like, okay, I'm a new parent. The mother of my daughters is acting weird. I don't know what to think. I don't know what's going on. And the sort of message from those who were close to me around me was like, we don't like what we're feeling. A lot of people had met the mother of my daughter and did not have good vibes, or had lots of concerns, namely around feeling that she seemed super, super controlling and super, super, super anal retentive. And my friends were concerned about that. And so basically, uh, what happened was after sort of I'm reading things you guys are saying here to me while I'm talking. So yeah, and just thank you for the support. Um, and yeah, let me just take a moment here to read this. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So somebody who I love very much is asking, is saying that they have to go. They can't stay on the stream, but they want to know the answer to a couple of questions. So let me just answer those questions now quickly. So one of the questions that's being posed is they don't know the whole story, but they think that a lawyer would help. So I was represented by a law firm, a pretty big law firm here, a law firm that was considered to be pretty much the best at this. And they represented me in court for quite some time until I want to say September-ish of last year, that range. And they no longer represent me because I ran out of money. And so I've been forced to represent myself in court since then. And I've argued in court twice now on behalf of my daughter. And I would say the outcomes of the two times of me going in court and arguing to a judge myself were more favorable than the outcomes I was getting with my lawyer previous to that. And I'm going to explain how I was able to have those gains. Sadly, they haven't prevented this crime from being committed. My daughter has disappeared 3 months ago. But the other question here is help the lawyer since police also. Has she ever been to a therapist, psychologist? So in terms of the mother of my daughter and her mental health, in December and January of January of 2023, December of 2022, I ended up asking, look, what's it going to take in order for you to feel good and secure? And so she said she wanted she needed maybe mediation, even though I didn't understand what that would be for. And I said, okay, great, I'll get a mediator. And then she said, when I said I would schedule the appointment with the mediator, she said, no, we need to do therapy before we do mediation. So I said, sure, no problem. So what I did is I went and I got therapy, a family therapist through my work. And we attended 5 family therapy sessions. And in those family therapy sessions, she admitted that she had suicidal ideations during her pregnancy. And we still find ourselves here. So yes, definitely did the lawyer thing. and did it for for a long time. I spent every penny to my name, my entire life savings on lawyers. And that's part of the reasons I came up with this solution. And she definitely was seen not only by a family therapist, but a few after. So we had a really, really great OBGYN during the course of the pregnancy. Somebody who's since retired, but is considered, I know, basically one of the best in the world in terms of being an OBGYN. We were very, 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 very fortunate to have this doctor. And this doctor, OBGYNs make an appointment about a year after, not a year, sorry, a few weeks after your child is born. I think it's like the 5-week mark or something, to meet your child, because they've been, the OBGYN is the mother's doctor, right? They attend to the mother to be. And so her OBGYN, I went to every single visit, of course. I was the OBGYN, we each, good rapport, and just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful human. And she used to have a lot of difficulties with this OBGYN. Number one, the OBGYN let her know that she probably wasn't going to have a natural birth. Number two, the OBGYN was of ethnic origin. And as the story goes on, you will see that the mother of my daughter has friction with people who are of different backgrounds often. And so basically what happened is a couple weeks, that first visit with the OBGYN after our daughter's birth, where she meets our daughter for the first time, I pointed out that our daughter had cuts, what looked like razor blade cuts on the top of her head. And so she saw that, and then those cuts had been healing pretty well by the time of that visit, where our daughter was 5 weeks old. At this point, my daughter and I weren't living together anymore. She moved in with her parents. So, I was able to see my daughter at this OBGYN visit, and I pointed out to the doctor that my daughter had what looked like razor blade cuts on the top of her scalp. The OBGYN was alarmed by this, and I pointed this out in the room with the mother of my daughter, as well as my daughter, as well as her mother's, the grandmother, the mother of my daughter's mother, was there at the appointment, and they tried to get me to leave the appointment, and the doctor ended up getting me back in the room, and I'm like, why should he be here? He's been here at every appointment. He's a great, But all this to say that that doctor is very disturbed when she saw the gashes on the top of my daughter's head that looked like they were done with a razor blade at a few weeks old, and asked me to send pictures of her to those pictures of it to her that I'd taken even earlier when they were even more pronounced. And so she gave me her number right there in the room with them. I took it and immediately texted the doctor photos, all the photos I'd taken of the close-up scars and cuts on our daughter's head. And I think what was alarming for the doctor at the time was that when I was explaining, I was like, we should tell her about the cuts on her head, right? You said to us, and this is me talking to the doctor, this amazing OBGYN, that like, hey, the doctor that did the C-section was going to be really, really good, but it looks like he may have injured our daughter. And I was like, here are some pictures, and we think it came from the C-section, because when I noticed those cuts on my daughter's scalp under her hair, her mother told me that those were probably cuts that came from the C-section process, where they probably cut our daughter inadvertently. The doctor was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. That's not how it is. And like, this guy is like one of the best in the world. There's no way this would have happened. And I was, of course, like, hey, well, then that's weird. Like, why are my daughter cuts in her head? Who did this? These are cuts that were there. Obviously, the C-section had some issues. And I was, like any dad, I was like, look, I want you to follow up and find out, who's this guy? Why did he, And she said, yes, I will, but this is strange. And so when the appointment was over, there was just this really aggressive tone towards me coming from the mother of my daughter and her mother. And they were like, they didn't want me to, they were holding the bassinet that had our daughter in it, and they were kind of turning it away from me and trying to block me from being close to my daughter, which is a weird series of behaviors in the middle of a doctor's office. So I was like, all right, this has gotten weird enough. So what I did is I picked up the bassinet and I walked into the elevator, of course. I put my daughter down in the elevator and I said, okay, take care, guys. I left, went back to the doctor's office and told her about all the things that had gone up at that point. I told her about the fact that The mother of my daughter had moved in with her parents without explanation. I told her about the fact that she had admitted to me of harming herself during pregnancy and had admitted it to, yeah, she admitted to harming herself during pregnancy because she felt she deserved it and she was angry with herself. She didn't tell me what the harm was exactly, but this is something she confided in me. Yeah, just talking about all the crazy stuff, the rages, the freakouts, the blow ups, the stuff, and most disturbing. Uh, and I felt this is a story that this is I remember I think maybe the second or third time I told a person, but this is the first time I told somebody who I felt really reacted in the appropriate way. Is I told the OBGYN about a really troubling event that occurred shortly after our daughter's birth and just before our daughter was she moved in with our daughter into her parents' place. So about my daughter's about I think I want to say about 2 weeks old at this point. What happened was, so we're going back to October. So we're going back to November of 2022. Um, uh, my lifelong friend is getting married, and this is sadly the second marriage because his first wife fortunately passed away. And I was, they got married when we were in our early 20s. His wife was one of my best friends in high school, and actually my prom date in high school, and so she unfortunately passed away during the birth of their second child, and so um, she was one of the closest people in my life, and losing her was very difficult. This was in 2015 when she passed away. And so basically, the idea that he's getting remarried now in 2022, after what an ordeal, but like him and his kids are doing incredible, like just the most harrowing, incredible example of like perseverance against the odds I can imagine, right? Like I really admire and respect him. And so, yeah, his wedding is here in Montreal. It was by the water. It was a beautiful place, about a 20-minute drive from her home. And so I said, yeah, so we're obviously gonna go to my buddy's wedding. And she was like, no, you're not going to that wedding no matter what. And it was a really big point of contention for her that I do not attend that wedding. So, obviously it's me, I'm not going anywhere. Let's care for our daughter, but like it's a wedding, it's an important thing. And she was intent on me not going, to the point where even though my mother offered to stay with her, even though I had friends and family who offered to be with her during the, let's say 5 hours or 6 hours I'd be at the wedding, she refused that. She didn't want her sister being with her during the time. So basically the idea was that she didn't want me leaving her alone with our daughter, even though there certainly was no need to be alone, right? I didn't want her to be alone with our daughter either at that point. Our daughter was, a few weeks old or a couple weeks old. However, uh, I've been there 24/7. Of course, it's our daughter. I don't want to be away from our daughter, but it's a wedding. It's a big deal. And my sister had asked me to be the best man at her wedding about 2 months earlier in Toronto. But I didn't go to that wedding because she also said I could not go to that wedding because there's no way I was going to leave her to go to Toronto for a weekend when she was, 7 months pregnant. And so I had to sadly decline the request for my sister to be the best man, which would have been kind of fun at her wedding. And I didn't go to that wedding. But the one that was after my daughter was safe and born in the same city, I felt, given especially the importance of the person for whom the wedding was for and with and what it represented, fair that I should be able to go for a 5-hour wedding, even though I have a 2 or 3-week-old baby. She did not agree with that. So the point where I was over at her home, of course, with our daughter, a couple weeks after our daughter's birth, and she was holding our daughter, and we were in her bedroom, and I was folding her laundry, and I was getting ready to go grab another load and do another load for laundry for her because, I'm doing that stuff for her on a daily at this point. And the discussion comes up about going to the wedding, which at this point is like a few days away. I want to say like maybe a week or coming up soon. And she just pops while holding our newborn daughter. She's like, "You're not going to that effing wedding. You're staying here, taking care of our effing baby." And she slams our daughter on the bed in anger at the idea of me going to the wedding, and then storms off, leaves her room, goes into the bathroom, and slams the bathroom door, leaving her baby on the bed. So, as you might imagine, that panicked the daylights out of me. And it was at that moment that I decided, okay, well, I went, of course, got our baby, held her, took our baby, went downstairs, did laundry anyways, came up, continued laundry, and it was like, okay, this is getting really, 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 really not good. She just had a physical, explosive reaction um, with our baby because I want to go to my best friend's wedding, and she doesn't want anyone to care for her because that seemed to be like an excuse of sorts to let me go to something I shouldn't go to. So I recounted this event to the OBGYN, who said, okay, that's it. She needs to see a psychiatrist right now. This is terrible. And told me, tell her that she needs to speak to a psychiatrist. I have a colleague I've reached out to, and they will speak to her. A little while later, it was confirmed for me that a psychiatrist did indeed speak to her. However, she, of course, didn't disclose any of those details. So at this point, where are we at? We're in February of 2023. I've been prevented from seeing my daughter. The only way I've been able to regain access is by filing an emergency safeguard order with the court. Once I file that emergency safeguard order, the judge ensures that I reconnect my daughter that day. And what got us there? Well, I made a baby with somebody who I'd only known for 3 months during the pandemic. It made sense, maybe less so in retrospect. And ultimately, that person decided to unilaterally move in with their parents without letting me know, forcing me to take them to court to regain access to our daughter. And by the time we ended up in court in February, by that time, a lot of things had transpired. I had been caring for her during the pregnancy because she was abandoned by her parents. I learned that a lot of things she'd shared about herself were lies. I realized that she had issues with controlling her temper, with rages and extreme jealousy. She slammed our baby on the bed in a fit of rage because I was going to go to a wedding. We found cuts on the scalp of my baby, who I documented, and those plus some recountings had her OBGYN decide she had to see a psychiatrist, which she did. She confided to me that she was harming herself during the course of our pregnancy because she felt she deserved it. And I confided this to a therapist, the family therapist that tended to us both. And she admitted to this therapist that she had suicidal ideations and was harming herself. And this is all in the court record. In spite of all this, it is now June 1st of 2025. And my daughter was disappeared on February 2027. February 27th of this year, 3 months ago. And what I did is I created something to not only help parents who are in my position, but also to get my daughter back in my arms. And so I made something, it's called the Nova Protocol. And I think this is maybe a good time for me to pause my story. I'm going to resume and just know that what I did is I created something to help parents like myself or people who find themselves on the receiving end of somebody who decided to use the law in a criminal way to harm their babies by harming them first. I don't think that's acceptable. And why isn't there an Amber Alert? Why is it that you're learning 3 months later that my daughter is missing? You'll find out, and I'll continue the story tomorrow. Thank you, everybody, for your support. I rambled a lot. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, streamed online. I'm open to your feedback. Please tell me what's up, tell me what you're thinking, and stay tuned. I'll continue the story tomorrow. And thank you for your support. And Nova, Papa loves you. I'm here. Papa can't wait to hold you. Be good. Don't eat too much chocolate. I love you. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And to be continued.